Okay, this is a continuation again, or a solution for the last part of the Excel sheet, and that's creating scenarios for the decision-making process that we are going through. The reason that you would use Scenario Manager is that you want to run the same analysis for a different person, maybe, or for a different agent, or and so on. So we have entered the criteria for Simon, but what if someone else wants to make the same decision about Grand Avenue, Metcalfe, and Sharon, but they have a totally different view of what is important in terms of the criteria. So for them, maybe rent is not as important as location and curb appeal. So to create, instead of copying the sheet into a different sheet, we create a scenario, and you choose which scenario to show on the sheet. You also get the opportunity to have a report that compares the scenarios together. So first thing would be to go under data. Let me save it first. And choose what if analysis and choose Scenario Manager. And I don't have anything in there, so I'm going to add a scenario, and I will name the scenario Simon. So Simon was the first one, and the cells that changed are the criteria, the weights for the criteria. So for the changing cells are B8 to B12, and I hit OK. And it says for Simon you have 35%, 1, and 1 for the parking, curb, and traffic. So you hit OK, and now I want to add a new scenario because the question tells you that you need to add a scenario. So you will enter a new scenario by clicking on Add. That new scenario we will call it, because looking at the scenario we see that location and curb appeal are more important. I can call it karma, for example. That's for me. You can call it, you can give it your name. And again, your changing cells are B8 to B12, so you'll hit OK. And now you will start changing the values. So now for karma, the range, the rent only carries 10%, location 25%, the parking is 20%, the curb appeal is 25%, and the traffic is 20%. And we hit OK. So now I have two scenarios. Well, if you look, I have, right now I can see Simon, but what if now I highlight karma and hit show? See, now the numbers, the weights change, and also the scores for the apartments. So the 3 is for Grand Avenue. Grand Avenue is much better now, or actually Grand Avenue 3, Metcalfe 3.95, and Sharon 3.8. So definitely I'm gonna move, or karma would choose 3.95 or the Metcalfe than Sharon. And you can have as many alternatives or as many scenarios as you want. Now, before we run the report, you need to really change the name of the cells, because if you see here, the cell is 10% and it's named B8. you can change the name of the cell. So when you run the report, it doesn't tell you B8 and you don't know what B8 is. It will tell you rent or location or parking or curb appeal. So go ahead for each of these, change the name of the cell from the actual address to the criteria. So rent, and you have to hit enter. So second one, you're not changing the value, by the way, because people type in and they think without highlighting the name and they change the content of the cell. We're just changing the reference of the cell. So again, instead of B9, I'm going to type in location and hit enter. B10 parking, enter. The B11, you cannot leave a space for a name of the cell. So if you want to call it curb appeal, there has to be no space or an underscore. Okay, now let's look at how the report will look. So you will click on summary and the result cells are in D3. I think you put a comma or it's either a semicolon or a comma, and then click on the total for Sharon. It's just a comma. So you click on the first and then hit control, click on the second and then hit control and click on the third. And now I have the report telling me the weights that Simon and Karma have for each of the criteria, and then the result cells I still need like to name them, which is weighted score for Grand Avenue, Metcalfe and Sharon. So let's do that and repeat the report again. We'll call that one Metcalfe. So again, change the name, the reference for the cell to Grand Avenue. I'm sorry. So now again, I'm gonna delete that sheet, this scenario summary, and run the analysis again. What if analysis, scenario manager, and summary. And now see, D13 did not get changed, but it should say Grand Avenue, Metcalfe and Sharon, and you can see how each are scoring. So for Simon, he scores Grand Avenue as 2.8, where Karma gives it a 3. Metcalfe is only 315 for Simon, but definitely best choice for Karma, and then Sharon is not as good for Simon, but high also for Karma. Okay, so we'll stop the archive.